A big hello from the happy, funky forage monkeys at the Herbathocry. Hi guys, method number one. One that follows basically most of my forages because you always collect more than you mean to, and I always freeze the excess because I know I'm going to go out tomorrow and get some more. So here is how I freeze. Well, this process is best for apples and pears because they go brown quickly. Other fruit you can just give a wash and chuck in the freezer. I've peeled and cut a few of the pears. This is half a cup of lemon juice with some spring water just to stop them oxidizing and going brown. And I will just lay these ones out on my baking sheets. Now, if you're intending on cooking with them, you can sprinkle some sugar on them at this time, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these ones yet, as I have a box load. So these ones I'm just going to get frozen. Once they're frozen for about 3 hours, they'll be ready to just pop in a freezer, or label, pop in a freezer bag with all my other stores for over winter. Method number two, jams, preserves and chutneys. Cover a fruit. I do suggest using apples to bulk up. It goes with any other fruit, blackberries, raspberries, damsons, plums, pears. Great one. Cover with just enough water to simmer them down and soften them. Add anything you like. I add rose hips. If it's the correct time of year, hawthorn is great. And you can either omit the chilies and just make yourself a nice jam, or add chilies and make yourself a bit of a chili chutney. You can also add onions softened if you like for the chili chutney, ginger, anything you want. However, the process remains the same. So bring it or simmer it slowly so you don't destroy any active ingredients until all fruit is softened. At this time, if you would like your chutney smooth, you can blend and sieve the ingredients and pop them back in a pan. But if, like me, you like some bits in, I add the sugar at this stage. Now, the amount of sugar you need depends on the amount of ingredients you have. I always start with about a quarter of a cup per cup of fruit that I'm using. But there is a way to check throughout. So pop a plate in the fridge or in the freezer now so it can get really, really cold. And once your fruit is soft, add a quarter of a cup per cup of fruit that you have. Stir it up, let it get to a rolling boil, as they call it, and then allow to cool slightly. Grab your really cold plate out the freezer and pop a little bit on, allow it to cool, and if it cools like a jelly, so you can run your finger through and it doesn't all run back together like a syrup, it's going to set and you can jar it up and allow it to cool. Don't forget to sterilize all your jars and heat them first so that if you're pouring hot liquid in, they don't crack and shatter. Method number 3 is fruit leather. As with the process before, however, replace the water with lemon juice. Fruits of your choice. Soften, blend, and push through a sieve onto a baking sheet with non-stick paper. Pop in your oven at the lowest heat and allow the fluids to dehydrate from the fruit. It will become a long roll. Now, with the one I made earlier, as you can see, the bits around the edge that were thinner dehydrated quicker. They made yummy fruit chips. but the bits in the middle then rolled out like fruit roll, pop in the fridge. We're still eating ones from a couple of months ago, which are lovely. Great way to preserve your fruits. So to recap, we've had 1 freezing, 2 jams, 3 chili chutneys, 4 fruit leather. Number 5 is drying the fruit and making fruit chips. So these being apples, I can do it with pears as well. I soaked them in the lemon juice or apple cider vinegar solution while I was preparing them so they didn't go brown. I then popped them on a baking sheet, same as I did with the fruit leather, and allowed them to dehydrate slowly. Right, preserving method number 6, apple cider vinegar or processing. Here we have a mason jar, we have all our cut apples, we have filtered water to cover. I used a bit more this time because I didn't have that many apples at the time. Should actually cut some more and add them in, but I'll just make some more later. We have a sieve-like mechanism. It's got holes in it, so it keeps the apples below the water so that we don't get any mold, but it still allows it to breathe. And here we have bubbles and a white foam kind of forming. That's a good sign. I'll leave this one in for another couple of weeks. You see we've got bubbles as well. Bubbles. Excuse me. I will only use wooden utensils when mixing this. Once that comes out, you strain out all the apples, pop it back in the jar for another couple of weeks. Now this one, as you see, the colour has changed. It continues to turn into vinegar afterwards. So this one I bottled on the 28th of last month. We're now the 20th of this month. I'll probably leave that one for a couple more weeks because I do have another one in the fridge. But if you see on the bottom, the mother is starting to form. When you buy apple cider vinegar and they tell you it's very important to have the mother, that's what it is. Once you've popped your apples in and your water and your sugar, some people say you don't have to use sugar. I don't use nearly as much as they advise, and I also use brown sugar, demerara, but it works for us fine. I then cover it with some cloth and pop an elastic over it because fruit flies absolutely love this. Number 6, sloe gin. Here we have our sloe berries that we harvested, and we have a small bottle of gin, and we have again about 4 heap spoonfuls of brown sugar. Pop in an airtight jar, shaken every couple of days, left in a dark cupboard for it to ferment and become extra yummy sloe gin. Method 6. This is a vodka, elderberry and rose petal and rose hip tincture. So this, very similar to the sloe gin, just I don't add sugar to this. I might add honey just to sweeten it once I have drained the elderberries and the roses out. This again, the longer you leave it the better. However, I wouldn't leave it over 6 weeks. Lastly, we have elderberry syrup. This, I froze the berries first, detached them from the stems, covered them with a slight bit of, well, just enough spring water to cover them, and allowed them to simmer. Squashed the berries with a potato masher, then used a sieve to drain out all the pulp, push out all the pulp. Once it had cooled, I added honey, and this the kids have once a day at the minute because, as you can hear by my sniffling, it's cold season. Thank you guys. Bye. Pretty sure we're on the 9th method now, and this is drying flowers to use later. These are the hops, there's the calendula and the lavender and everything that we harvest during the season. We use the lavender in sleep pillows and making lavender oil, the hops in the sleep pillows, the calendula and skin creams. We do the same with nettles and dock leaves, etc. Our herbs as well, and try them to use throughout the season, which leads us to the last method, which is then using either the fresh or the dry herbs in creams and salves. We use coconut oil and beeswax for our salves, but there are many different methods, different oils and things you can use. Have a look into it. It's a great way to preserve your local foraging and protect your family. Cheers, guys.